Okay, welcome to the Stampscapes lab. What we have here is a new pack of paper. It's the Galaglow 50 disposable printed rectangle paper placemats, 11.7 inch by 16.5. Okay, we've got this hazelnut type of I don't know, whatever patterning to it. I thought it would be really good, a good surface to stamp on, nice and warm tone, and it looks kind of like your, I don't know, like a leather type of surface. It comes in this really nice box right here, which will kind of prevent, you know, a lot of damage from your standard just shrink wrapped pack that gets shipped over to you. But there it is right there. There's a slight sheen to it, which is, it's shinier than the wood grain paper if, you know, you've seen me use that in some different videos. So I'm not sure how it's going to take the ink in terms of drying ability, drying time, and how it adheres to the surface in terms of the types of inks that we use. I really love the patterning on this right here. You can see it's varied from one part to another. It's a little bit more textured up here, a little bit more, I don't know, warmer and more solid down below like that. Single-sided, okay, because these are placemats, you know, to just place down. You eat off of them and you toss them out after, you know, the night of eating or something like that, okay? It gets stained and you have your water cup on it, you know. I'd imagine that's why this has a little bit more coating on it, you know, than maybe the wood grain paper. All the wood grain paper is made for the same type of thing, but that they put a little bit of shine on this kind of seals it off a little bit more. So if you're eating off this off your lap or something like that, you don't get water and food, you know, and stuff like that. Oils kind of penetrating this as fast, being that it's a little bit coated here. Okay, so what I've done is I've gone ahead and I've test printed on here 5 prints using the pine tree. This is the kind of the exercise you generally want to do if you're kind of experimenting with different types of kind of untested crafting papers, okay? We don't know the characteristics of the papers we're using sometimes if you experiment like I do. Okay, so the first print here is the VersaFine Clair VC right here, okay? VersaFine Clair is an oil-based pigment ink. It has a lot of good detail in it. My pad is a little bit dry, or quite a bit dry, okay? So this would print out darker if I re-ink this, okay? But I didn't. I just want to see the impression quality, drying time, and if it's going to adhere to the surface like that. Drying time would be a little bit more if I re-ink this. Stays on ink, your solvent ink that can pretty much print on any type of surface. It gave me a really good impression here, and this type of ink right here, it dries practically, yeah, not instantly, but it's the fastest drying types of inks that we would use in, you know, whatever, you know, crafting and card making usually. Brilliance ink right here. Like the VersaFine Clair ink, it's a pigment ink, but it's a water-based pigment ink. So water-based inks are going to dry faster than your oil-based inks. Some oil-based types of media don't penetrate the surfaces or dry on certain types of surfaces that are a little bit less porous. This is probably a little bit less porous than a lot of your cardstocks, your matte cardstocks, your semi-gloss cardstocks, and papers like, you know, the wood grain paper, the Brilliance does work on there. But, you know, other types of papers, you know, there's some types of characteristics that oil-based inks just are, you know, they're not designed for. So you need something that's going to kind of dry a little bit faster due to the absorption factor of those types of papers. But we'll test it out in here. Okay, so we have the Marvy dye-based inks, which is a water-based dye ink, and dye inks work by staining surfaces, so it has to be able to penetrate. It can't be a completely non-porous surface, so we'll test out, you know, this for porousness. I don't know, I guess one of these days, you know, I should do a little test here on a piece of paper just by taken some of this, and what I'll do is I'll put some water on it like this, and it looks just kind of at first glance here to be, well, I don't know. I'm going to see if this water penetrates this at all, if it's just beating up on the surface. If it's just beating up on the surface like that right now, I don't know if the dye-based ink is going to adhere to it, but we'll see. We'll leave this on here for a couple minutes here and see how it does. Hybrid ink. Hybrid ink like this Total Eclipse Black right here is a combination of your oil-based pigment ink and your water-based dye inks. So a couple of the most popular types of inks combined together. So when you're doing this on like a piece of matte cardstock or something like that, you get the penetration and holding power of dye-based inks by absorption, but you also get some of the benefits of your surface-based pigment inks, where those pigment inks are largely staying on the surface, so you get the benefit of a little bit of a darker impression because the ink isn't absorbing into the paper as much, or the media isn't. Okay, so this is good news here. This is starting to kind of, I don't know if you can tell, but it's starting to pucker a little bit. Yeah. So this water is now penetrating this surface a little bit. See, like that? Now that's what we want to see in terms of our crafting. You know, if it's not, if liquid, which is our inks, can't penetrate a surface at all, it becomes what we call non-porous. And then you better be using something like a StazOn or something like a Brilliance that's going to be able to dry on the surface without any type of absorption ability at all. So that would be things like foils. Okay, you put some water on this and it's just kind of going to drop, drip right off of there. Those types of things you really need drying powers. Okay, but yeah, even kind of just touching over here with my wet thumb, I can feel this surface really kind of changing over there. It's kind of rippling. So yeah, I can see that, where some of the water is starting to kind of come through there a little bit. So far so good there. That's a really good trait for crafting papers. I'm going to give this a couple more minutes to dry. I stamped it about a minute before I came on here. So we really need to, give these inks some time, a fair chance, you know what I mean, to dry on here, and we'll see how that goes. Okay, I've given this a couple minutes to dry. I'm going to do a little bit of a test here. Let's see, I just do a finger test. And I see that the clay here is a little bit moist, okay? Now my clay was really dry, so if that was really built up, that would still be quite a bit, quite wet after, whatever, 15 minutes, okay? StazOn, I just know that dries like instantly. The Brilliance ink here, the water-based pigment ink here, is a little bit smudgy, or quite a bit, okay? You can see that drag here of my little finger here. The dye is a little bit subject to smearing as well. And the hybrid ink, let's see. Okay, now let me see. I had a little bit, there was a little bit of a piece of felt there. So that kind of rolled out. The hybrid ink, miraculously, is pretty dry on here. So we got, I guess that makes sense, or does it? I don't know. The Brilliance is also a water-based ink. So you would think that this one would be a little bit more dry because it's all water-based pigment, but this one's pigment, maybe there's less pigment ink in this one, so I don't know, this one worked pretty good. Now, okay, now this isn't to say that these are unusable, especially if we give them more time to dry. I just gave it like, I don't know, whatever, 10 or 15 minutes here, okay? But it's not so wet that these, these inks are just completely dragging out, okay? So that bodes pretty well. Now, if you're going to do something where you're going to stamp out some kind of card and I got to get this done, it's got to go out today or something like that, then maybe these kind of slower drying ones aren't for you, but it looks like we have some choices here. And a lot of people don't have a hybrid ink. Brilliance inks, a little bit more particular. A lot of people have stays on. Some people don't work with it though because I don't know. You really don't really need it on something like, matte cardstocks, which is the most popular type of surface to work with. And a lot of people have switched from water-based markers, your Le Plumes and Tombos, over to alcohol pens, which you don't really want to use to color your stays on inks because it's, alcohol on solvents put the solvent ink back into solution and it can get a little smeary. Okay, so those are your inks right there. Let me test a little bit of colored pencil here. I don't expect the colored pencil to work on something this sealed off and glossy. There's almost no kind of texturing to it, unlike the more matte or semi-gloss wood grain paper that I've been working with, okay? All right, I am getting a little bit of, coverage here with these colored pencils, okay? Now, when I'm working with this type of background paper, I'm really not doing a lot of coloring, because I'm buying this for the texturing and patterning that's inherent on the paper, so I just do really minimal types of applications. But it's good to know that, if you want to add in a few extra shadows or something like that, we have some options here. So let's see. Let's see if I can get a little value range on this, okay? Because sometimes when a paper is kind of glossy and sealed off, it doesn't allow for a lot of coverage. Okay, so the colored pencil here, I don't know if you noticed this, but I can apply some on there, okay, like that. Now the Prismacolor pencils are known to be kind of your softer type of pencils, okay? So I was kind of going on here, and I'm going back into, let me see if I can do that again. Yeah, I don't know if I can. I was kind of going over that, then I went back over it this way, but then I just kind of removed a lot of that colored pencil right off there. Now, if I kind of go like this, I can kind of remove some of that colored pencil, that built up wax, again, because there's no tooth to this paper where it's going into this, the grooves of the paper, but that's not too bad. Okay, now see, I'm going. There's a part of this pencil, if I use it at a certain angle, it kind of, yeah, there, see, I'm kind of removing wax right there. So it looks like if I get a little bit of a buildup of wax like that, I can kind of remove it too if I accidentally go a certain way. But if you want to get some kind of lighter shades like this with kind of a thinner coat especially, it looks like that's, that's I say this with an asterisk, but you can kind of apply some of that. So it depends on your colored pencils that you're using. If you're using a really hard type of colored pencil, you might not be able to do these extra little types of touches on there, okay? So, I don't know, so that's your colored pencil right there. Let's see some alcohol inks. On something like this, I don't remember using alcohol inks on something like my wood grain paper, but just to check the ability, this is just a very light gray here that barely shows up there, but it's just like, on top of this paper, it looks like something that's about, I don't know, like a 7% darker or something like that. Let's go with the dark one right here. Or in scenic stamping, we might be using greens. Now, like I said, I don't use this on this type of paper. We're just checking for ability right now. Okay. So your colored pencils over here. Alcohol inks over here. And that is completely adhered, which, you would expect from alcohol ink. All right, let's try this in a scenic stamping scenario here. What inks I'll use? Let's go with, let me see. Let me test that hybrid again. That surprises me. Like I said, the hybrid's one that I really enjoy using. So it looks a really good candidate for kind of no fuss inks. There's, would be the StazOn and the hybrid here. These ones are still a little bit moist. I think if you gave them overnight to dry, it would be no problem, to adhere there. And if you spray seal it too, I don't think there'll be any problem with that as far as adhering the inks. But these two for sure are adhered to the paper pretty good. Okay, let's get set up here and let's stamp out a scene and see what it looks like. Okay, let's go to my go-to testing stamp, the Lakeside Cove Large. Let me do something before this. That's not going to dry like immediately. So let's do a little test here. I'm going to take my Brilliance White. And one of the things I do like this little feature, adding this feature into my scenes when I'm doing the wood grain paper. Let's see how it looks on this paper right here. I'm going to give this a little bit of a moon type of object in the sky using some Brilliance White right here. We'll see how that applies. It looks like it applies really nicely. We want to see if it dries and adheres, but again, that black impression of the Brilliance is looking pretty good, so we'll test this out right here. You can test out a different type of white ink too, you know, Hero Hues, whatever brand you have, you know, give it a test and see how it looks. And give it a little bit of time to dry, you know, when we're working with kind of these kind of specialized papers or papers that just aren't designed for, you know, crafting and stamping, okay? You know, this is designed to, you know, get your plate of food and, you know, put on your lap and eat off of, and then to be tossed out, so. But we can take advantage of, you know, these different types of papers like this and surfaces that are out there. And relatively, you know, kind of inexpensive to work with. It's almost like a 2-page spread, so you know you get double the, you know, kind of letter size, standard letter size papers, and relatively cheap. You know, like I said, they're not thick by any means because they're just meant to be tossed out. But maybe we can make something kind of really cool out of them. Okay, so this is the hybrid black ink. I've re-inked it a little bit. My pad was really a little bit dry, but that looks pretty good there. So that texturing in there with the... that looks like a texture that we can achieve, certainly, with stamping, you know, like sponging in there. And we would sponge down like a light color and then kind of a brownish warm tone over the top of it. But look at the impression quality. It looks pretty good. The Total Eclipse Black, the Moon of the Maker, I think they were doing something. They're rebranding or something. Their inks, their hybrid inks. I think they have it in there, but it might not be on their website. So if you ask them about it, though, you know, KB will get back with you, and you know, hopefully that, you know, they're carrying this, because it's that I don't know if there's other hybrid inks out there these days. You know, there used to be some different types of inks, and the hybrid one. Type was around more, but I don't know if Moon of the Maker's the only ones that are kind of selling them now. They're the makers of the Art Foamies, so it might be on the Art Foamies website or something like that. But look at how beautiful that looks. Don't expect it to dry instantly now, you know, because it's, you know, it's a fairly sealed surface. But as we saw, you know, see, there's no water on this at all anymore. And, you know, it's kind of, it buckles it though. Okay, so if you get water on there, like that was a lot of water though. It's not like, you know, stamp, you know, ink moisture is going to do it. But I think that is looking pretty sharp. And could give us another option for... I don't know, our scenes. I'm looking for a stamp here for the water. I was going to do a little kayaker somewhere around here. Let's see here. I've got this little rocks. I put some little pebbles in my along the shoreline here. Like that. A little bit of texturing in here. Let's do it on the near shoreline as well. Okay. We have a pretty cool little scenario right here. I think those impressions look pretty darn good on there. On these sealed papers, you know, it's as we're making our impressions, it's not soaking into the paper too much. But I can just see this. I hold my paper at a little bit of an angle like this when I stamp things out. And if it's really, really wet, you can see where it's kind of really shiny, you know, where there's a ball of little ink that's still kind of drying. But I look at it at an angle like this, like that, and I don't see that happening. So this ink right here is drying on this pretty good. If you have your StazOn pad, you know, you can use that as well, and that prints out very nice and very dark. And I didn't even re-ink this StazOn before I stamped it out, so you know, you can do it with a dry pad, but you know, you don't need a ton of it. Anyway, so that's it. So again, a pretty cool texturing. This doesn't have the grain of the wood grain paper, so you know, you stamp something kind of with vertical grain or a horizontal grain, that makes for a little bit of a difference. But on this one right here, I mean, you know, this one's like darker down here and a little bit lighter up here, the way that this is cut, you know, so you can kind of make, you know, some decisions based on the patterning of it. But for the most part, it's, you know, I wouldn't say uniform or anything like that. Like this right here has these little swooshy types of things. So let's say if I was doing something like this and I wanted that little swooshy area up there to be in the sky, you know, would it be more interesting up there, or would it be more interesting like down here in the water if this was stamped kind of in landscape like that? So you can make those little decisions like that. But otherwise, I think it looks pretty good. I like the warm tones right here. I tend to think that this would look good, you know, this type of paper would be a pretty good match for, you know, a reflection card, you know, warm on warm like this. It's real hot in my room, so this is like really bowed like that. But, you know, you can get something like this going in here, and I think that would look really nice. A viable stamping surface and relatively inexpensive. Always like those types of combinations. And again, for some quick cards, you know, this makes for a really quick type of card because we have all that background in there already established. It's the warmth, it's the texture, etc. You know, so if we don't feel like kind of creating that, which would give us a little bit more variety, you know, if we're doing that, you know, but if we want to do something quick, I think this fits the bill really well. We'll have to try some other types of applications on here, snow scenes and things like that, maybe, I don't know. But I don't know, this should be something that's reasonably fun to work with, I would think. Okay, so just remember, test out some different types of inks that you had. If you have different types of brands than the ones that I'm using, test them out on a piece of scrap, see what you have, and then, you know, utilize accordingly. Okay, and you know, don't kind of like just stamp it out and smear it across and say, oh my god, that didn't dry. You know, some of these will require more drying time, but maybe the ones that require a little bit more drying time means that the media is on more surface oriented, maybe giving you a darker impression. So, you know, on one hand, it takes a little bit longer to dry, but on the other hand, it might give you a stronger, darker impression for more contrast, drama, etc., detail on here, okay? All right, so anyways, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope to see you on the next video.